सारी जन्नत में रसूले अज़ली लिखा है। सारी जन्नत में रसूले अज़ली लिखा है। डाली डाली पे अली और वली लिखा है। सब पत्तों पे हसन और कली पर ज़हरा, सुर्ख व फूलों पे हुसैन इब्ने अली लिखा है। सारी जन्नत में रसूल अज़ली लिखा है। डाली डाली पे अली और वली लिखा है। सब पत्तों पे सब पत्तों पे हसन और कली पर
Name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. All praises to Allah, the Creator of the universes and their Sustainer, the Provider of believers and unbelievers. And may His choicest blessings be on the seal of His prophets, the last of His messengers and His holy progeny. And in particular, may His special blessings ever continue to flow on that fifth member of the household of the Holy Prophet, on Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. We reached the stage last night in our progression of the journey of Imam Hussein alayhi salam from Medina to Karbala, at a stage when he was about to depart from Medina, and the last personality he met was Muhammad Hanafiya, and as we saw, he made a will to him. We discussed that most critical part of the will last night, which set out the purpose of the journey of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And then, almost at dawn, on the 28th of Rajab, Imam Hussein alayhi salam departed from Medina. But when he departed indeed as Nabi Musa alayhi salam departed in the fear of Fir'aun, and when he left for Madian. And indeed, Imam Hussein alayhi salam left Medina reciting those holy words, saying, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ قَالَ رَبِّي نَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. That he left, that Nabi Musa alayhi salam left, as did Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He says, khaifan, in fear, and keeping a watch out, whether he is being followed or traced or not. Khaifan yataraqab, and he says, Qala, O my sustainer, protect me from the hands of the unjust oppressors. And as he left, he took the main highway. Muslim ibn Aqil gallops to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and says, Mawla, this is generally known highway to Makkah. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, don't we want to go to Makkah? Hazrat Muslim says, yes. But in the circumstances in which we are, would it not be more prudent that we take the quieter way, the stealthy way, which, for example, as we discussed, Abdullah bin Zubair took? And Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, my departure is not a stealthy one. My departure is not one of fleeing from Walid or from Marwan or Yazid. And I can tell you, O Muslim, that we will reach safely to Makkah without they being able to catch me. If they will catch me, they will only catch me now at Karbala. That was his destination. And he announced it, that they will but catch me at Karbala, no, sooner than that. Because sooner than that, he would fight them. But before we talk of his entry into Makkah, and he entered Makkah just as Nabi Musa entered Madian, reciting those very holy verses of Quran, but when he saw the hills of Makkah from a distance. But the point I wish to discuss with you, as a matter of political exigency of the circumstances of that particular time, is this: when this illustrious personality, the grandson of the Holy Prophet, so respected in Medina all his life, was now departing from that place where he was always seen at the graveside of his grandfather, and was always respected, always consulted on matters of faith and religion and on tafsir of Quran. When he departs, and the Madanites were all aware that he departs only because Yazid has asked for his bay'ah, why was Medina silent? That is my question of greatest grief over the Madanites. Indeed, they realized that that was a blunder on their part. If such a personality was departing from them because he was being harassed, because he was being unjustly treated, then wasn't it the incumbent duty upon each member of that society to rise against Walid then, to rise against Yazid then, and say, we will have Hussein in Medina at the graveside of his grandfather, and we shall not tolerate anybody touching him? Why was the Ummah silent? And that question which we ask in respect of what happened in the 60th Hijrah applies with equal certainty and equal application today as well. It is because the Ummah has remained silent throughout the Muslim commonwealth of today that one finds that Islamic precepts do not carry weight in the world today. Well, it is amazing that they allowed these things to happen, particularly because they saw what happened to Imam Ali alayhi salam, and they saw what happened to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And equally true is that of the Kufians, whose plight we shall discuss tonight, inshallah. But a time came when they heard that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was martyred, and that his entire family was martyred, just as they feared would happen. But they remained in their fear without doing anything about that fear. And suddenly, when they heard of this, even the Madanites became aggrieved, and they too revolted. But by then, it was too late. By then, they had missed the chance of making their sacrifice in the name of Allah to save Islam. However, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam reaches Makkah, and this was on the 3rd of Sha'ban, on the eve of Friday. On the Thursday night he entered Makkah, having left Medina on the Sunday. And just as he enters, he hears the news that Abdullah bin Umar had already reached Makkah. And he was amazed to hear that news, because Abdullah bin Umar was still hiding in his house, you remember, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam left Medina. But it appears that when Walid got the news that Imam Hussein alayhi salam had left for Makkah, he immediately set upon Abdullah bin Umar, requiring to attend the government house and make allegiance to Yazid. He did attend the government house because he was helpless. Otherwise he would have been arrested. So you can see the plight of the situation. This is the son of the second Khalif being treated like this. He attends the government house of Walid, does not have the courage to say the kind of thing Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, didn't have the courage to turn to Marwan and say, Marwan, if you think you can even touch me, let alone kill me, you are lying. That was the allegation Imam Hussein alayhi salam made, and Marwan swallowed those words without being able to react to it at all. Abdullah bin Umar was a far cry from that response. He turned round and said, yes, I will give this matter a serious thought, and let us talk about this tomorrow. And Walid gave him time because he was dead helpless. He had given time to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That very night Abdullah bin Umar fled, and that is the word I use, using other routes through the deserts, and got into Makkah quicker because he was a single soul galloping entirely on his own. But when he reaches Makkah, he remains close to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as did Abdullah bin Zubair. We examined last night the ambitions of Abdullah bin Zubair. He was in Makkah to see if he can set up a government of his own, to set up his khilafah, and yet he knew that so long as Hussein remained in Makkah, he stood no chance. The Makkans would rally around Imam Hussein alayhi salam rather than Abdullah bin Zubair. When they ultimately did join Abdullah bin Zubair was primarily because of Mukhtar, as we shall discuss inshallah on next Saturday night. Well, Abdullah bin Umar comes to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and says, but how long, Yabna Rasulullah, will you stay in Makkah? Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, what choice have I got? And he suggests that we go back to Medina. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, Uffin lakal kalam, I totally reject your suggestion. Going back to Medina is going back to square one. I have to make progress towards my destination. Here was a person who had his blueprint in front of him. He had the charted map, which he was following step by step, stage by stage, only to save Islam. And as he said to Marwan bin Hakam, la'anatullah alayh, he says that if I make bay'ah of Imam Hussein, then wali Islam is salam, then it is goodbye to Islam. That is what Imam Hussein alayhi salam realized too well. But just as this happened, and the news of the death of Muawiyah spread around the Muslim empire of the time, the people in Kufa now also came to know of this. The Madanites had come to know and remained quiet. The Kufians immediately took action. Sulaiman bin Surd Khuzai called a meeting at his house of the Shias of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Now, the political setup in Kufa was slightly different from that in Medina, because Imam Ali alayhi salam had shifted his headquarters to Kufa and had set up a political stage of the Shias in Kufa. That is the stage on which Sulaiman bin Surd Khuzai then stood, called the Shias who were well known in Kufa to his house and said, Muawiyah is dead, but what an audacity that he should appoint his son to be the successor. Now that is the question we were discussing last night, that under what authority would Muawiyah be able to do so? And we lamented that that possibility became a reality only because of the silent majority of the Ummah. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam, therefore, in his speech in Makkah, on an occasion prior to his departure, said very clearly that Muawiyah being allowed to appoint his son as a successor without any intervention from the Ummah is what will eventually kill this Ummah, which will eventually become venomous to the cause of Islam. And he then laid out glorious words which the civilized man of today, in his development of human rights, can learn from most profusely. The words of Imam Hussein alayhi salam are that when an oppressor is oppressing an oppressed, be he a person or a society, then whosoever does not help the oppressed but does not help the oppressor either, still is helping the oppressor. In other words, whoever remains on the fence is in fact helping the oppressor, because the oppressor has then no opposition. The oppressed is already at a disadvantage. He is already being oppressed and is in his suffering. He has to protect his own position. And in those circumstances, if he does not receive help from where help can legitimately and sufficiently come, then he is left to defend with his own meager resources. The oppressor already has the means to oppress. Those means are not being curtailed. The net result is that silence on the part of the majority only helps the oppressor to continue his oppression. He says, when an oppressor oppresses the oppressed, not to assist the oppressed is in fact assisting the oppressor. That is the rule he laid. Even the human rights rules of today do not go that far. However far United Nations Charter on Human Rights may go, however far the Geneva Protocol on Human Rights may go, it nowhere reaches the standards that Imam Hussein alayhi salam had taught with regard to development of that sacrosanct principle of human rights. And yet, the people of Makkah did not rise. They heard all that. The only people who rose, and rose lamentably, I'm afraid, the only people who rose were the people in Kufa. At least they met. They discussed the situation. They unanimously agreed that Muawiyah had no right to appoint his successor. They also made the point, because they were Kufians, so they knew that part of history, that the settlement made by Imam Hassan alayhi salam with Muawiyah prescribed that on the death of Muawiyah, Khilafah must devolve on Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It is significant that I say that tonight, and I did not say it last night, because significantly Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not even mention that article of the settlement to Walid that particular night. But to Marwan he did. When they met the next day in the street, he set out the important things which we discussed last night. He then also set out to Marwan, "O Marwan, do you remember that the promise of Muawiyah was that on his death, I will take over. Do you now tell me that it is for betterment of this world that I should make bay'ah to Muawiyah, to Yazid? How does that work?" The Kufians raised that aspect of the matter, and they decided that they must rise against Yazid and against Nu'man bin Bashir, who was then the governor of Kufa, and assist Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Sulaiman bin Surd Khuzai perhaps knew his people better than anybody else. And he said, if that is the case, then we must write a letter to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and give him this assurance in writing. Make up your minds now. If you are sure that you will assist the grandson of the Prophet to fight Yazid and take over the true legitimate imamah that has been reposed in him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then put it in writing. They said, you put it in writing on our behalf, and Suleiman said, that I will not do. Each will be responsible for his promise to Allah, and that is what we are seeking to establish. Accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So each one of you who thinks this is right must sign in his own name and make that promise to the grandson of the Prophet personally. But if you feel that you are weak, and if you feel you will not be able to stand up to that responsibility, do not promise him anything, verbally or in writing. Do not put his life in danger to come here and find that you are not supporting him. And they all unanimously agreed. Indeed, Imam Hussein alayhi salam arrived in Makkah, as we said, on the 3rd of Shaban. By the 10th of Mahr Ramadan, in just about 5 weeks, letters start pouring into his laps from Kufa. Sometimes 600 letters arrived in a day. Sometimes a letter signed by one individual. Sometimes by a number of individuals in one letter. The first letter that he received came from the leading personalities. Sulaiman bin Surd himself, from Musayyib, from Habib ibn Madahir. All those signed the first letter that left. And when that letter reached Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it was a touching letter. But more seriously than that, apart from it being touching, the most serious aspect of it is, it created duties and responsibilities on the shoulders of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which he regarded it as abdication of duty were he not to respond to them. They said that in that first letter they said, and this was repeated in subsequent letters too, they said, we have always recognized Imam Ali alayhi salam as the true successor to the Holy Prophet. And in that process, we always knew that Imam Hassan alayhi salam was the true Imam after him, and you after Imam Hassan alayhi salam. True, we have Nu'man bin Bashir here, but we have never said the Jummah prayers behind him. You can see the political angle to the Friday prayers, and it is indeed a political procedure that Muslims follow. And hence do we say that it does not become wajib until the 12th Imam alayhi salam comes back, when the political setup of Islam will be revived. So they said that the two political namaz, we don't pray behind him. We do not pray Jummah behind him, and we do not pray the Salatul Eid behind him. We celebrate that festivity in our own homes, because we do not recognize his competence to lead Eid prayers or Friday prayers. But for that matter, Yabna Rasulullah, we do not pray behind him at all, because we regard him as a usurper. As a result, we are left without an Imam. And when we are in conflict or in a state of ambiguity, we lack guidance. We believe that if you came over to us in Kufa, we will not only be able to regenerate and rekindle the true imamah, we will be able to get the guidance we need, so that faith is revived in us, and so that the true spirit of Islam comes back to the world. Not only to Iraq, but to the world as a whole. What is an imam to do when he receives that kind of a letter? Is he to abandon and abdicate those who claim to be his legitimate followers? Because they said very clearly, we do not accept Nu'man bin Bashir, we do not accept Yazid, we never accepted Muawiyah, we only accept you. And guidance therefore must only come from you, and therefore you cannot alienate yourself from us. What does Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the circumstances to do? Indeed, the letters that followed were put in more poetic terms. They said, the dates have already become green. The fruits have already ripened. We only await your arrival so that we can start reaping. What is Imam Hussein alayhi salam now to do? He was straight away in a dilemma. I will not discuss his spiritual angle for this moment. I shall draw the attention of the youth purely from the practical and political setup in which Imam Hussein alayhi salam suddenly found himself entangled. And when in that state, Ibn Abbas comes to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and says, Yabna Rasulillah, how long will you stay here in this state? And Imam Hussein alayhi salam's answer to him is, where else do you think I should go? I cannot go back to Medina. That retreat I cannot make, because the same question will arise again. And I do not want to go back and come back to my Makkah. It will serve no purpose. Where else do I go? Ibn Abbas could not assist. In about the same time, Muhammad bin Hanafiya comes to Makkah only to inquire about the state of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and visits his brother and says, brother, it is heartening to see that you and the family are well, but how long will you stay here? Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, so long as it will be the will of Allah that I should stay here. When the time will come for me to depart, I soon will. But if I do not stay here, what do you suggest? Where do you want me to go? And he suggested two places. He suggested Yemen, and he suggested Baida. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, very well, I shall give this matter a consideration. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam was leaving Makkah, and Muhammad ibn Hanafiya got the news that Imam Hussein alayhi salam has announced that he will leave Makkah the next day, he too galloped down to Makkah and meets Imam Hussein alayhi salam and says, I had suggested you do not go to Kufa, and yet you are going. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam says to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, such is the command of my grandfather. He had said, such was the command of Allah when he left Medina. point Muhammad ibn Hanafiya was making to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which was well in mind of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, was, he says, you remember how he treated our father, how they treated our father Imam Ali alayhi salam. They made his bay'ah. They all made bay'ah of Imam Ali alayhi salam in Kufa, even if all of them didn't in Medina. And they all went out even to fight with him. And they fought a number of battles with Imam Ali alayhi salam. And look at what they did in Siffin at the end of it. They all turned, when the good group turned, and a civil war was feared in the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali alayhi salam became obliged to accept the settlement that was being offered by Muawiyah. This is how they treated our father. And look at the way how they treated Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Can you now trust these people after these two experiences that we in the family have had from them, from the political setup? These Kufians are people who will with one hand give you allegiance and with the other hand kill you. Remarkable words from Muhammad ibn Hanafiya of how a human being can behave like that, in particular if that human being is a Muslim, and all the more if he is a Shia. And so they claimed to be. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, however, is now in this dilemma. On the one hand, the total unreliability of the Kufians as a result of their previous behavior and the experience of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because Imam Hussein alayhi salam was intimately connected with both those instances. When Imam Ali alayhi salam went to fight in Siffin and in other wars too, Imam Hussein alayhi salam was physically there. And when Imam Hassan alayhi salam set out to fight, Imam Hussein alayhi salam was not only on his side, but Muawiyah knew that even if he bribed the entire army of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, if those 4 or 5 members of the household of the Holy Prophet, who were all the time with Imam Hassan alayhi salam, that is the Imam himself, Imam Hussein alayhi salam next to him, Abbas next to him, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya next to him, Muslim ibn Aqil next to him, Muawiyah knew there was no chance of him succeeding. And hence Muawiyah made settlement with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Well, still the Kufians had deserted Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Imam Hussein alayhi salam considered that whilst he had all that experience, how does he answer the Kufians when the Kufians say, you are our Imam, you are the one to guide us at a time when we need guidance, when we are being ruled by this oppressor who is taking us away from Islam. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam came out with a politically most astute decision. We tend to overlook these decisions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because by the time we talk about these things, it is mentioned in the terms of Masa'ib, and we weep over these decisions. Indeed, they are worthy of weeping, and those tears will bear us very lofty consequences and very lofty rewards. But there is the need to reflect upon those decisions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Hence I said 2 nights back that every step is worthy of a discussion in itself. Imam Hussein alayhi salam came out with a beautiful middle course decision. He wrote back to them. And in the holy month of Ramadan, the letter within 10 days was set out to the Kufians. He said in the letter that I have received your letters, and I have received in particular your delegations, because not only were letters sent to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, people physically came to meet him to say, you must come to us in Kufa, we need you, we can't do without you. He refers to that, and he says, in particular, I've heard what your last delegation of Hani and Sa'id had to say, and I have decided that I will send my brother, my cousin, and a trusted member of my Ahlul Bayt. These are glorious medals that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was pinning on the chest of Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam. He called him in his letter Akhi, called him a brother. and said, وَثِقَتِي مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي, a trusted member of my Ahlul Bayt, of my household. Now that was so important, because they were saying to him, we regard you as an imam. We do not want a representative. We do not want someone who is not an imam to come to us. We expect you as our imam to come to us so that you guide us. And when you guide us, we know that what you say is what Allah says. Now, how does Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, no, I don't trust you anymore. You behaved like this in the past. You do not punish a person before he commits an offense. That would be contrary to human rights. And yet, their behavior was such that Imam Hussein alayhi salam could not have immediately decided that he was going to Kufa. And if he did, the entire world would blame him for it. So he sends someone, and yet he does not send anyone. He sends someone, yes, but not anyone. He says that I send Akhi, my brother. He is not anyone now. He is my own brother. 2, Ibn Ammi, he is my cousin. And that expression was so important. And then the thiqati. And this is, I say, a great credential for Muslim ibn Aqil. Because Muslim ibn Aqil is now being treated just by Imam Hussein alayhi salam, just as Imam Ali alayhi salam was treated by the Holy Prophet. The 3 credentials Imam Ali alayhi salam always had. And when Imam Hussein alayhi salam made his speech in Mina, he mentioned these credentials of Imam Ali alayhi salam. All the 3 of them are mentioned in his speech in Mina. Alas, we do not have the time. I have come to the conclusion, we do not have the time to touch that speech in Mina. I hope we will touch the speech in Makkah that he makes before he departs from Makkah. But Imam Hussein alayhi salam refers to them all, and he awards those honors, each of those medals, to Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam. The status of Muslim ibn Aqil is so elevated, that it is no wonder that there is gold sparkling on his shrine today, and is today known as Babul Hawaij. He calls him a brother, because that is what the Holy Prophet called Imam Ali alayhi salam. He decided in Medina that there will be brotherhood. And when brotherhood was distributed, he made Imam Ali alayhi salam his brother. He did that again in Makkah. And I will not consume your time on it, because we have discussed all this in the year 1978. In Makkah, when he made brothers, it was a curious setup. He made one Muhajir a brother with an Ansar. But when he made himself a brother of Imam Ali alayhi salam, it was both Muhajirs coupling together as brothers. And indeed, the Holy Prophet always called Imam Ali alayhi salam, oh brother. He never called him as Ya Ali until and unless circumstances demanded calling him in difficult circumstances, like that which occurred in Khaybar. And hence, Nadi Aliyan Madharil Ajaib. That is where we get the source of that particular invocation. However, he always called him otherwise, a brother. And indeed, he was a cousin. And just as the Holy Prophet had his cousin to be on his side, Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, likewise, I am choosing a cousin. After all, he was talking to people who said they recognize the Prophet and recognize Imam Ali alayhi salam after the Prophet, and then Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. That is the category of followers he was dealing with. He dealt with them the way the Holy Prophet dealt with his successor. And says, I'm sending my brother and my cousin and my trustworthy from my Ahlul Bayt. He does not come from outside the Ahlul Bayt, and trustworthy in the sense that whatever you say to him, you have said to me. Whatever he says to you on Sharia, he has said to me, from me. And indeed, we do not have the opportunity to discuss Muslim ibn Aqil tonight, nor will I take your time, but one of the theologically most learned erudite of the time was Muslim ibn Aqil. The only person perhaps, apart of course from the Imam himself, who matched him was perhaps Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. It was said that he perhaps was deeper in knowledge of fiqh and tafsir than was Muslim ibn Aqil. And he therefore, and indeed every day after Isha prayers, he said, questions were asked of him which he answered impromptu on the spot. But the greatest merit in that letter was that if you make bay'ah to Muslim, it will be as though you have made bay'ah to me. That was the peak to which Imam Hussein alayhi salam elevated Muslim ibn Aqil and sent him off. And then said in that letter, winding it up, if Muslim ibn Aqil writes to me, in other words, it is not only that I'm asking you to trust him, it is not only that I'm asking you to rely on what he says and that his word is my word, I too rely on him. If he will write to me and says that you have made my bay'ah through him, and if he tells me that your leaders, this is very crucial in that letter which Imam Hussein alayhi salam writes, leaders can cause problems, and do, and we know that. And that is exactly what Muawiyah did. He says, if your leaders and the intelligentsia amongst you also bear and continue to bear, he says that expressly, continue to bear the same kind of opinions as are expressed in these letters, and were said to me personally by your delegations, then I will myself immediately come to Kufa. So he left no stone unturned. Those followers could not have blamed him then. They could not have said that he left them in a lurch. He sent Muslim ibn Aqil with great haste. Muslim ibn Aqil gets into Medina first to salute the Holy Prophet and makes his ziyarah, visits the family and moves out to Kufa. But lest a youth might think that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was only playing a political game there, let me say that Imam Hussein alayhi salam had his eyes on Kufa because that provided him the gateway to Karbala. For his destination was Karbala from the spiritual angle. But even that not taken into account, he wrote a letter to Basra. He wrote a letter to his Shias in Basra, which is not generally known, but this is well accounted in history. All our leading historians and Sunnite historians have written about this. Khwarizmi, for example, in Maqtalul Hussein has mentioned this, setting out the entire letter that Imam Hussein alayhi salam sent to Basra, telling the people that I am in a dilemma, because as you know, Allah sent the Holy Prophet who appointed my father Ali alayhi salam to be his successor, and then my brother was appointed by him, and the Holy Prophet himself mentioned that I will succeed my brother, and yet circumstances have changed. Muawiyah not only has appointed his son Yazid to be the successor, Yazid has asked for allegiance from me, and he will ask for allegiance from you. I do not consider this to be in the interest of Islam. I do not consider that allowing a person like Yazid to head the Islamic Commonwealth and to be in charge of the fiqh of Islam can result even in the survival of Hussein. Remarkable words, because we see leaders today in the Islamic world who call themselves spiritual leaders, and you sometimes wonder if they really behave differently from Yazid, from the social angle. I do not accuse them of killing people or taking them into custody, but the other disregard for Islamic precepts, not for example praying in good time, not enforcing fasting, which is all provided for in the Quran. One wonders whether those leaders legitimately can call themselves Islamic leaders. And some of the more advanced communities of the Islamic world, like the Qadianis, for example. I mention the name publicly because in Pakistan there is a public act regarding their question of faith. Imam Hussein alayhi salam centuries ago reverts to that matter and sets it out in his letter to the people of Basra and says, give me your views. And indeed, the leaders in Basra, he wrote a letter to 4 different people, and they all merged, and having converged, called the Shias of Basra. And the Shias of Basra wrote a letter to Imam Hussein alayhi salam saying, yes, we are in total agreement with you. And the moment you give us a signal. Unlike the Kufians, they did not even tell Imam Hussein alayhi salam, come over to Kufa. They said, the moment you send your orders to us, we will comply with your orders and take on from that particular point. Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam, however, reaches Kufa. And in no time, Shias pour in to make bay'ah. 12,000 people at least made bay'ah. Shaykh Mufid alayhi rahmah mentions 12,000. Other writers, including Khwarizmi, mention 18,000. That 18,000 people had already made bay'ah to Hazrat Muslim. Hazrat Muslim instantly writes a letter to Imam Hussein alayhi salam saying, come over. And when that letter arrives, true to his word, Imam Hussein alayhi salam writes a letter to the Kufians saying, I have received a letter from Muslim ibn Aqil. He sets out that a large number of people have already made bay'ah to me. And therefore I have decided that I will soon set out without delay towards you and keep you informed of my exact date of arrival. And I promise you that in my discharge of my duties, and this is a fantastic conclusion that Imam Hussein alayhi salam writes, in the discharge of my duties, I can state in the name of the one in whose hands my soul lies, that an imam must be a person who will judge between his followers purely in accordance with the book of Allah. Because neither Muawiyah did, nor Yazid did. And I complain that there are those leaders of Muslim Ummah today who do not either. And how can we shut our eyes to that fact? Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, an imam must be a person who judges between people purely in accordance with the books, with the book of Allah. Secondly, that he acts justly himself and treats other people justly. And this is how he promised to act the moment he went into Kufa. And then he says that he is a person who himself relies entirely on Allah, and his judgments and behavior are based on the will of Allah and what pleases Allah, and only that. And concludes his letter. In other words, it was a challenge that he threw, and that remains loud and clear till today, that if those qualities are not found in a person, that person cannot be followed as an imam. He becomes incompetent for that particular field. However, that letter goes. But as that letter goes, and the days of Hajj draw nearer, Imam Hussein alayhi salam intends to perform a Hajj and makes a niyyah that he will perform Hajj. And indeed, wears his ihram to perform Hajj. And now, it is very clear to the Muslims that they will be able to perform Hajj with the grandson of the Holy Prophet. Years had passed since they performed Hajj with the Holy Prophet. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam, although he went to Hajj many a time, it is said of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, just as it was said for Imam Hassan alayhi salam, that he performed 25 pilgrimages in his lifetime, all of them by foot. All of them by foot. And indeed, on one occasion, an embarrassment arose because he was proceeding to Hajj with his elder brother Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and we saw last year how Imam Hassan alayhi salam also went by foot, and his horse would be next to him and his camel carrying his luggage behind him. And when asked, Yabna Rasulullah, you have your horse next to you, why are on your foot? He would say, I am ashamed that I should go to the house of Allah riding to it. I must go on my feet. And on that particular occasion, both the brothers were together. And it so happened that people were behind them. So, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqas, again, father of Umar ibn Sa'ad, who killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqas goes to Imam Hassan alayhi salam and says to Imam Hassan, Yabna Rasulillah, people are behind you. They cannot cope with you. You are walking elegantly out of your spirit to the house of Allah. But these ordinary Muslims are not to that level. They need to ride, yet they don't dare overtake you. this is a time when neither Imam Hassan nor Imam Hussein alayhi salam was in authority, but their spiritual stature was such that no Muslim would overtake them. So Imam Hassan alayhi salam looks at Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, "Oh my brother, we cannot ride." And Imam Hassan alayhi salam turns to Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas and says, "Sa'ad, we too will not ride, and yet we will cause no inconvenience to the other Muslims. Let them continue on this path. We will go aside. We will take another route, a longer route, and we will walk by that route so that the Muslims can ride on without us." That is how they performed Hajj with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But this was a different year, a year in which allegiance was sought and refused. So people were looking forward to doing this Hajj with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And yet Imam Hussein alayhi salam receives intelligence that Yazid had sent a number of people in the garb of pilgrims who were going to be in Ihram under Umru bin Sa'id bin al-As, with express instructions that if possible they should arrest Imam Hussein alayhi salam and take him alive to Damascus. But as it was anticipated that that would not be easy to arrest Imam Hussein alayhi salam, then they should kill him at the first possible opportunity. Imam Hussein alayhi salam instantly on receiving this news changes his niyyah, as you know, from Hajj to Umrah. He is questioned about this, naturally. He is questioned about this, and the first person who questions him is Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas says, "Ya Ibn Rasulillah, how can you do this? Muslims have been looking forward to performing Hajj with you." And Imam Hussein alayhi salam's answer to Ibn Abbas is, "Ibn Abbas, I prefer that my blood should be shed on the banks of the Euphrates than in the vicinity of the Kaaba. The hurma, the sanctity of the Kaaba forbids me that I should allow my blood to be shed in its vicinity." Well, strong words. He says the sanctity of the Kaaba forbids me, prohibits me from allowing my blood to be shed. Nobody allows that. The blood is shed by the oppressor, by the killer. The victim has no hand in it, and never has the victim in fiqh been made liable for the action of the killer in shedding blood. But Imam Hussein alayhi salam, in his high altitude, in his proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is so dear to that house of Allah, to that Kaaba, that today he will not even be prepared to suffer that other people should infringe the sanctity of the Kaaba by shedding blood there. And indeed, if it happens once, it can happen again. Imam Hussein alayhi salam immediately decides that to save the sanctity of the Kaaba, he must depart from there. But in that decision, he makes it very public. He is asked, "Why do you do this?" And he says clearly that Yazid has sent people in the garb of pilgrims to kill me whilst I'm in the course of tawaf. And this is nothing new. Indeed, that Abdullah bin Umar that we keep discussing, the son of the second Khalif, was ultimately killed in exactly that way. He was making tawaf around the Kaaba, and he was killed in a spurious way. And I discussed this to show what could have happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. A person in the tawaf at the side of Abdullah bin Umar pricks his umbrella in the foot of Abdullah bin Umar. The tip of the umbrella was immersed in poison. That poison spreads into the body of Abdullah bin Umar, and ultimately he dies. Not within that period. Not within that period. This is after Mukhtar, after the days of Mukhtar. And inshallah, we shall discuss the status of Abdullah bin Umar at that particular time on Saturday night, on the first night that we embark upon discussion of Mukhtar. Well, so Imam Hussein alayhi salam knew that he could be killed in such surreptitious and spurious ways that the world would never come to know that he was killed by Yazid. some mad pilgrim did this to the grandson of the Prophet. Yazid wouldn't do it in the house of Allah. And such rumors would have been easily spread. The reason why Imam Hussein alayhi salam left Medina and ultimately Makkah and decided that his sacrifice should be in the open would entirely have been lost. By then Imam Hussein alayhi salam had learnt of that silent majority, had learnt that in the time of his father, had learnt of them in the time of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and decided that if that silent majority were to be relied upon again, Islam would be dead. And he also decided that merely his sacrifice would not have been enough. It had to be a sacrifice of such a magnitude that the very spine of humanity would shriek and shiver only reading history. Only reading history. People ask us, how long will you weep? You've been weeping for 14 centuries, and we say yes. You ask us this question because you do not know what sufferings Imam Hussein alayhi salam went into. If you knew what happened to him in respect of each one of his beloved children, you would be weeping as we do. It is that ignorance of the world, sheer ignorance of what happened in Karbala, sheer ignorance of the true mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that lets them even ask us these questions. However, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, on taking that decision, immediately makes a speech. He makes a speech in Makkah because he decided that answering individuals was not going to be fruitful. And therefore he makes a speech. And in that speech, he sets out his progeny. He sets out the orders, the commands of the Holy Prophet and the appointment of Imam Ali alayhi salam as the successor, and says that I am leaving not because, having got the news that Yazid has sent people to murder me, I am not leaving because I am afraid of them murdering me. Not at all. Because death, and he puts it so poetically, he says death is hung around the neck of a man just as a necklace always accompanies the neck of a female. And so it is inevitable. All will die, and so shall I. And indeed, I not only know the date on which I will die, I know the place where I will die. And my grandfather has shown me that place. Not only that place, but the exact pebbles on which I will fall. I know exactly where I will fall. Yes. And on Shab Ashur, he showed his companions exactly where each one of them will fall. And so I am proceeding to my destination. But as I proceed to my destination, I do so in the knowledge that it is only by shedding this blood that I will be able to save Islam. My journey, therefore, is one of sacrifice. Anybody who wishes to join me is free to join me. And I will welcome him into my entourage. But remember that this is not an entourage going to fight and to make a booty. It is an entourage to lay their lives in the path of Allah. So those who are ready to sacrifice their lives should join us, should join me. Those who are not willing to sacrifice their life and live in the greed of booty had better remain behind in Makkah. He therefore drew a line immediately. He drew a line between those who are true Muslims, true adherents of Allah, to whom the sanctity of religion was paramount, and those who were greedy creatures after the wealth of the world. And so it is possible for us to determine today that those shuhada whom we salute in Ziyarat-e-Waris are worthy of that salutation, because they are people who immediately saw in which category they fall, on what line we fall. When we discussed Hur, for example, we discussed how he drew the line and decided exactly where heaven was and where hell was. I will take a leap and come back to this particular point tomorrow. But just after, because two personalities have to be dealt with before I go to Abdullah bin Ja'far. But Abdullah bin Ja'far gets the news that Imam Hussein alayhi salam has decided to go to Kufa and has already written a letter through the auspices of Muslim ibn Aqil to say that he is proceeding to Kufa. and has promised the people that he will soon get there. He gallops over to Makkah, goes to the governor of Makkah and says, this is the grandson of the Prophet. One wishes more people did this. One wishes more people did this in Medina. He is the grandson of the Prophet. Can't he get security within the precincts of the holy Kaaba? Is he not a person first entitled to security in the Kaaba? What is happening to Muslims of this world? And you are in the very heart of Islam, where the house of Allah lies. This is what we say today of Makkah. And the governor says, I will give you security now, I will give you the aman now to Hussein alayhi salam. He has been here since Shaban. This is now Dhul Hajj. Nobody has touched him. And I can give the security that nobody from the state will touch him. No orders to arrest him will be implemented. Imam Hussein alayhi salam knew that no orders need to be implemented. That governor may be giving the letter in all good faith. But if people came directly from Damascus, they would override his orders, as Marwan was overriding Walid in Medina. However, Abdullah bin Ja'far obtains that and catches Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the outskirts of Makkah, saying, Yabna Rasulillah, I understand your intelligence sees that people have come to murder you. Here is the aman from the governor. You can go back to Makkah. Don't go to Kufa, oh Hussein. Don't go to Kufa. We have seen what has happened to Imam Ali alayhi salam. We have seen what has happened to your elder brother. I genuinely fear this is what will befall you, as indeed it did. Imam Hussein alayhi salam has no words. What is he to say to Abdullah bin Ja'far? But he tells him the truth. He says, Abdullah, last night I had a dream. I saw my grandfather. And my grandfather, the Holy Prophet, in the dream tells me, Ya Hussein, move out towards Kufa. That is the path towards your final goal. That will reach you to the final goal. So, I am going to Kufa. And oh Abdullah, Sha'Allah an yarani qatila. So, Abdullah bin Ja'far now becomes totally helpless. Says, well, Yabna Rasulillah, I have always been your close companion. I have always been trustworthy to you. If you think that I have been trustworthy to you, please leave the children and the ladies with me in Medina. I will take them back to the graveside of the Holy Prophet. And I undertake to you that I will protect them and look after them. Don't take Zainab with you. Don't take Kulthum with you. Don't take your beloved wives with you, because I can anticipate what will happen to them. What is Imam Hussein alayhi salam now to say? But he turns round to him and says, oh my brother, Sha'Allah an yarahunna sabaya. So Abdullah bin Ja'far becomes now totally helpless. He leaves Imam Hussein to do what he wants, but at least turns round and says, Ya Hussein, if you must go the way you do, please take these two little sons of mine, Aun and Muhammad. You have told me I am unfit to come with you, and indeed I am too unwell and too sick to make that long journey. Take these two children with you when you are in Karbala on the day of Ashura. Please allow them to be sacrificed in my name, so that on the day of judgment, at least in that schedule of the Shuhada, if my name is not there, the name of my two sons are there. What was Imam Hussein alayhi salam to do? He embraces Abdullah bin Ja'far, embraces Aun and Muhammad, and takes them into his entourage. And it proceeds on the day that the time comes when the eve of Ashura comes. Bibi Zainab alayhi salam is seen with these two little children, telling them that night that, oh Aun and Muhammad, you have been brought here so that you are sacrificed tomorrow. But the great thing in life is that Asghar is thirsty. Akbar is thirsty. Make sure that if you fight like Ja'far al-Tayyar did, and it is possible that you should because that spirit is in your blood, make sure you do not get to Furat. And if you get to Furat, do not drink one drop of water, oh children, because your drinking one drop of water will be the betrayal of Asghar, who is still thirsty. And they say, oh mother, we promise you we will fight as our grandfather did, and we will not have a drop of water if we have survived these days. Tomorrow is our last day anyway, and then we will be with your mother and your grandfather. And she says yes, and she says you must fight as your grandfather fought, as my father fought, on both sides. On one side you have the valor of Ali, on the other you have the valor of Ja'far al-Tayyar. And the sons say, oh mother, we will protect those two famous names, but we will also protect the name of Abbas, because our tutor was Abbas. How can we fail? And indeed, the next day when the two fought, they aimed at the tent of Umar ibn Sa'd and got into the tent of Umar ibn Sa'd, and having taken charge of the tent, says, Umar, where are you? You come and fight us in single combats. Umar ibn Sa'd had fled from his tent by then. But when the second day came and they went to seek leave of Imam Hussein, saying, Uncle, our father says, our father has said, we have been brought here for sacrifice. Our mother has said, we must be the first to be sacrificed. Let us go. Imam Hussein alayhi salam every time embraced them and said, how can I let you go? You are the apples of the eyes of my sister. How can I let you go? One gets a clear impression that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was not so much hurt when these children and the other shuhada were killed as he was hurt by separation from them. His love for the children was such, he could not let them go. Every time they came, he said, oh my nephews, I can't let you go. My heart doesn't allow you to go and fight with these enemies. Anybody who has gone has not come back. And they would say, but we do not want to come back. A stage is reached when Aun and Muhammad go to Imam Hussein and says, oh Imam, Akbar might go next, or Qasim might go next. We can't be alive when Qasim goes. And when Imam Hussein alayhi salam does not grant them leave, Zainab comes herself and says, Hussein, won't you allow these children to get to the ranks of Shuhada? Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, oh my sister, I do not have that courage to let these young innocent ones to go. Bibi Zainab obtains leave by saying to Imam Hussein, oh my brother Hussein, what face will I show to my mother? What face do I show to my mother if on the day of judgment she says, Zainab, you made your sons more dear to you than my Hussein was? Imam Hussein says, Zainab, I allow them to go. And when they saluted Imam Hussein, saying, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Imam Hussein did not even have that spiritual courage to get onto the horseback and bring the bodies. Abbas says, Ya Hussein, you stay back. Ali Akbar and Abbas went to bring the bodies. Of course, Imam Hussein went on to ask them, oh my dear sons, what last message do you have for your mother? And the sons gave the message, just tell our mother, we have died thirsty without having had one drop of water. If Asghar is still thirsty, we are also thirsty, and we are dying in that thirst. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة.